Hello! If you're new to this channel, my name is Asada, and on this channel I document my life as an American expat who is living in Copenhagen, Denmark. In today's video, I will address a question that I have received multiple times across multiple social media platforms. I've seen this question in the comments, I've had people DM me this question, and it's a question that I wanted the answer to myself before I moved here to Denmark. What is it like to be a Black person living here in Denmark? What is the experience? How do people treat you? I have received these questions so many times, and today I feel ready to address them. And like I said before, this is a question that I also had before I moved here to Copenhagen. I had a tough time finding prominent sources of Black people who had experienced life here, who had been living here for a while or moved here from another place. I checked out YouTube vlogs, I looked at some articles, and yeah, I was able to find some things, but compared to the amount of people who aren't Black who are documenting their experiences in this country, my sources were limited. A huge reason I started this channel was so that I could document my experience as not just an American or a woman or an expat moving to Denmark. I wanted to document my experience as a Black woman. So you might be wondering, are there even that many Black people living in Copenhagen? And the answer is not a ton, not as much as you would see in, say, where I come from, Atlanta, Georgia, but we are here. When I'm walking through the city center, I'm very rarely the only Black person on the street. If I were looking around, it's really easy to spot another Black person. Of course, we don't outweigh the amount of white presenting people in the streets, but we are here. Now, when I first started getting these questions about the Black experience here in Copenhagen, I really wanted to take my time before answering this question, and I thought it really important to provide as much context around this question and my experience as possible. Now, if you want really detailed context, you can check out my past videos. I talk extensively about my life here, but just a little overview about who I am, what I do, how I experience life here in Copenhagen, because I think that's really important and that will inform how I experience life here as a Black person in Copenhagen. First things first, I moved here from the US about 7 months ago. And before that, I had only ever lived in the US. I'm now 30 years old, so I've lived in the US for 29 years of my life. The only place I've lived in Denmark is Copenhagen. Copenhagen, which is the capital city of Denmark, is very diverse compared to the rest of Denmark. And I haven't really experienced much of Denmark outside of Copenhagen, at least not yet. I have some big plans for the spring and summer, but up to this point, I had only really experienced life in Denmark through the lens of Copenhagen. Now, in my day-to-day life, I work mostly from home. I am self-employed. I'm currently developing my own business. Aside from that, I also teach yoga at a yoga studio a few times a week. And I regularly attend yoga classes at that studio. So when I'm interacting with people, it's mostly in the yoga studio. Aside from that, I interact with people in my neighborhood. I have dogs. If you're wondering what that black furry thing is, that's my dog Peter. And so I go out frequently to take them on walks. And I interact with people because my dogs interact with other dogs. And my dogs have made quite a few little friends here. So I'm often forced to have interactions with people, which I am grateful for because they've, for the most part, been very lovely interactions. But my dogs also help keep me socializing on a day-to-day basis here. Now, I think all of these things are important for you to know because those daily activities shape how I'm experiencing the city. Aside from my Monday to Friday work day, my husband and I go out quite a bit. We are new to the city, so we want to experience and explore as much as we can. And there's so much to do here in Copenhagen. So we're often out at museums, we're often out at restaurants, we go to the theater, we just try and soak up as much of the culture as we can because it's infinite here and it's one of the things I love most about the city. So I'm out and about quite a bit on the weekends, again, interacting with people. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is my expectation. My expectation as far as how I thought people would treat me and how I would experience this city as a Black woman. The first time I visited Copenhagen was in August of 2022. I was a tourist in this city. My husband had been here before and he thought it was a place I'd like to see. So on one hand, I was really excited about exploring a new space, but on the other hand, I was a little wary about the fact that this is a country where there's much less diversity than what I'm used to, and I just didn't know how people would react to seeing me. I didn't know how much I would stand out. I prepared myself for the fact that people might stare at me, that I might be ignored in certain spaces, someone might say a racial slur. These are things that either I've experienced or people I know who are Black have experienced. It's just how things are, unfortunately. So you have this idea that if you go to a place where the people are predominantly white, or the people predominantly don't look like you and you're an outlier, that all of those horrible experiences you've had in your past will be multiplied. I knew that Copenhagen was a big, diverse city, so I knew there was a high likelihood that people would just let me live and treat me like a person and not make me feel strange or stare at me or make me feel like I was being studied. But when you've had experiences that have made you feel uncomfortable or even unsafe in the past, you just always have your guard up because it's better safe than sorry. And although these things were in the back of my mind, I also didn't want to be like on the lookout for these things, because if you're looking for something to go wrong, you'll probably find it. And as long as no one is stopping me from enjoying my life, going where I want to go and doing what I want to do, as a tourist, I'm just experiencing the city. I just want to have my experience, and I don't want to look for something racist in my surroundings because I could probably find it. Now, the big question, what is it like to be Black in Copenhagen, Denmark? My answer has a few different components because, like I said, I was asked this question in a variety of different ways, and I want to touch on as many of those different variations as possible. So it's important, again, to note that I am just talking about living in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's just one city in Denmark, so this isn't what it's like to live in Denmark as a Black person in general. It's this Black person's experience in Denmark. So while I hope sharing my experience helps you if you are curious about this or have a question, you want to visit this place, you want to move to this place. Before I moved here, I would have loved to have seen someone on YouTube address this directly because it would have helped me to set up some kind of foundation for my expectations when moving here. But all I have to offer is my experience. And my experience living here in Copenhagen as a Black person has been really positive. One of the reasons I wanted to wait to answer this question, since I first started receiving this question, since I first started this channel a few months ago, was that I wanted to give it some time. I wanted to gain some experience, a few months worth of experience, before I could definitively say that the experience here is positive. And it has been. I haven't noticed too many people staring at me, or at least if I have noticed someone staring at me, it could just be for some other reason. But I've had experiences in the past where I've known people were staring at me because I was Black, and I've even had people come up to me and tell me they were staring at me because I was Black. Might share that one a little later because now that I've had some space, it's kind of funny. But yeah, I don't notice any stares. I'm not the only Black person usually on a day-to-day basis that I see. I feel really included when I go to the yoga studio I teach at, and people are so warm and welcoming. People have been really nice to me in restaurants and cafes, and I've never felt discriminated against. And I get a sense that people are way more interested in the fact that I am from the US compared to the fact that I'm Black. And it might be, this is my theory. I'm just sharing a little theory that I've been developing in my mind. Europeans in this region are very matter of fact. They're very to the point. They're very practical. From a practical mindset, the fact that I'm Black is obvious. It's obvious that I'm Black, or that I at least present as Black. And so if you really want to get to know a person, it's not really that productive to harp on the fact that that person is Black. That's generally obvious. It's more productive to ask the person about where they come from, what they're interested in, questions about their family or their upbringing. I get those questions all the time from my coworkers at the studio, and I think about those conversations compared to conversations I've had in the past where I could tell that that person was fixated on my Blackness. And I think about how little of a sense of who I am that they gained from that being the focus of the conversation they wanted to have with me, as opposed to the conversations I'm having here, where people are more inclined to ask me about the things that interest me. And that has been such a breath of fresh air, especially as someone who comes from the US, where the topic of race is a fraught topic, a heavy topic. It can bring up a lot of trauma, personal trauma, generational trauma in that country. And then you feel, of course, obliged to talk about it. And you don't want to minimize things that are putting your life in danger or the political happenings that are trying to prevent you from having rights. Of course, those are things that are important to talk about and I talk about all the time. There are so many things about this life that make up a person's life, that make up my life. My hobbies and daily activities and about my dogs and my family and the people in my life. I say all that to express that I feel most people who I interact with think of me first as foremost as a person that comes from the US. And then they think about the rest. And the fact that I'm Black is just a fact about me, but it's not the main thing about me. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm proud that I get to walk out into the world with this color of my skin, this reflection of my ancestors, this reflection of my culture. But I come from a place where that is just so harped on and something that makes you a target for prejudice and racism and really horrible is an understatement, experiences that I wouldn't wish upon anyone, that I've experienced, people in my life have experienced, racial slurs, people placing stereotypes on you. I have met so many beautiful and wonderful people here who have embraced me with open arms, other expats, other internationals, and Danes who have lived here their whole lives. The people that I've surrounded myself with here so far and the people that are starting to make up my new community here in my new home have been incredible people. And I know if I were looking hard enough, I could find some not so incredible people, to put it politely. Of course I would find racist people. Of course I would find people who are prejudiced. That exists everywhere. Compared to the south of the US, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, which if you don't know the history of the civil rights movement, the history of Georgia and Atlanta, Georgia, highly recommend you educate yourself on those topics because it will give you a fuller picture of what my experience was like in the past. But I have to say, I feel my Blackness has resulted in more negative experiences on a daily basis in Atlanta, Georgia than it has on a daily basis here. Based on 7 months here, based on the context that I provided at the beginning of the video, that's my perception. Now, some of you might be watching and have a lot of thoughts. I obviously do as well, and I've shared, only a fraction with you. I could go on and on about race and my experience as a Black person, my experience as a Black woman, and what the woman side of things has been like. And I think I might do a future video on that as well. Again, these are big subjects and I want to make sure that I approach them with care and that I'm providing the correct context because I don't want to create any false expectations. I can't say it enough, just my experience. Like I said, some of you might have a lot of thoughts and I actually would like to know some of them. If you have been living here as a Black person, and furthermore, if you are a person of color who is perhaps not white presenting, or maybe you're a person of color who is white presenting and then you have told people that you are not in fact white and that has resulted in an experience that you would like to share. I would like to know. You could reach out to me privately. I'm available on Instagram and TikTok. Of course, you can reach out to me on this platform. Put something down in the comments if you feel okay with sharing it publicly. I want to know your experience because my experience is just my experience. I haven't been here that long, and I would like to gain a deeper understanding of what people are experiencing as far as race relations here in this country. I'm someone who is building a life here. I'm someone who desires to raise children here in this country, and those children, of course, will be half Black. I want to be as informed as I possibly can be. So let me know in the comments if this video was enlightening to you in any way, and I hope to learn from any of your experiences that you're willing to share as well. Please keep any public comments respectful. When it comes to the topic of race, certain people don't know how to do that, but this community has been respectful thus far, so I feel that we're doing a good job of creating a safe space where not only I can express my thoughts and opinions, but everyone else can as well. So please continue that. Otherwise, your comments will be deleted because I want to make sure that I am creating a space where people feel safe in sharing. If you've gotten to this point, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video.